Hey, what is up guys, MKBHD here, and it's about time we give the full review treatment to the Oppo Find 5. So for those of you who missed it, my first video about this device is on the screen now in an annotation, or it's the first link below the like button on this video, but to put it bluntly, we've been waiting for this phone for a while. This is the International Find 5 from Oppo, a company more well known for its pricey Blu-ray players, but boy has this thing been a pleasant surprise. In the build quality department, this is the best smartphone you can buy. Step aside Droid DNA, step aside Samsung plastic, step aside iPhone 5, step aside Lumia 920, this is a stormtrooper of a smartphone build, an absolute boss. It measures in at 165 grams and 8.8 millimeters thick, so that's actually making it thinner and lighter than that 920, but not too thin and not too light. I actually prefer a phone that's just a little bit thicker to accommodate a bigger battery, and they've done that with this phone. It has a 2,500 milliamp hour battery inside this guy, so that'll help it last easily an entire day on a charge, which is nice. Now, I'm not about to do a drop test, but this phone feels incredibly well built. In fact, the frame is made of steel. Steel. There is steel holding this phone together. It has a rock solid back too that completes the look. And the bezel around this glass display, it's very hardened glass and it's pretty sharp around the edges, but it is edge to edge glass, so you won't see it as a seam when you're holding the phone. Also, if you take a look at the entire design, it's not completely flat on the top and the bottom. It has a little bit of a curve to the design, and it has a pretty traditional button layout, which will remind you that it is definitely still competing with other high-end smartphones like the Sony Xperia Z and other 1080p phones coming out in the near future. So up on the front, you have the menu button, the home button, and the back button. And there is no multitasking button, obviously, but we'll get to that whole process in a second. But also, just first off, so we're clear, the headphone jack is up top, not my favorite location, but it's there, and the audio sounds good. And we have the power button on the left side, the USB port and the microphone on the bottom, and the volume rocker on the right side. Now, I've been using Motorola and HTC and Samsung devices for so long that this power button volume rocker placement felt backwards at first, but I actually got used to it in a few days. And everything about this design is great. And again, it just screams quality, everything about it. Even the packaging is awesome. Some US manufacturers could really learn from this. Very simple, clean, stylish, and compact packaging, and magnetic. So it's really simple. It even has a subtle design on the top cover that I actually didn't notice until I revisited the box a few days later. So this is an awesome box. Even the Oppo logo SIM card ejector tool feels high quality. Gotta love this stuff. Now back to the phone anyway. On the back is a pretty decent quality speaker. It actually gets really loud, louder than most other smartphones, but it gets distorted when you crank it that loud. But it's pretty good overall. And up top is a 13 megapixel camera and dual LED flash and microphone. Now this camera was hit or miss really. It looks great on the spec sheet, right? You know, 13 megapixels, but it really just performs like any other average 8 megapixel smartphone camera, like something like the Optimus G really. It's sort of middle of the road, though I'm sure this can and will improve with Oppo's constant firmware updates as they seem really dedicated to updating it. But it takes okay photos, it takes HDR, macro, the whole nine, but I was really more impressed with the video mode. It actually let me take 1080p HDR videos, which gave me much more dynamic range in shots that were really bright and really dark, so it seemed to do a pretty good job with that, especially for a smartphone. And I was actually most impressed with the 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera. It looked really good during video calls, Google Plus Hangouts, so I appreciate the good shooter on the front. But honestly, overall, clearly, the Find 5 is a unique device that stands out from the pack, especially in the design and the build quality department. So if you want a phone that's built like a tank, this is your phone, no doubt. And when you turn it on, holy crap, this is very different. This is Oppo's skinned version of Android 4.1 Jelly Bean. Now the immediate first reaction is, wow, that looks like a larger and more colorful Stormtrooper iPhone now. Well, you'd be right, I can kind of admit it does look that way at first. This is a MIUI looking skin, but then again, this is Android, so you don't have to like everything about these home screens out of the box. You can just throw on Nova Launcher, add an icon pack, add whatever widgets you want, and you will never have to see this look again. You don't even have to be rooted. So that's the beauty that it runs Android. It's very flexible. But out of the box, this is what it looks like, and it's honestly a pretty solid experience. You can't really knock it till you try it. And again, you do get widgets and all these things, so it's not all just square icons. They've taken some hints from the US manufacturers, like Samsung, who don't just put a skin on it to make it look different, but they actually add value. They add features to make the smartphone look better or make it more useful. So the notification bar is a perfect example. The Oppo took the opportunity to add some custom toggles and information to the notification bar. Another example is the multitasking, which allows you to see not one, not two, but 3 of your most recent apps, and you can swipe them away and swipe between them to close them. And you also get an idea of how much of your 2 GB of RAM is free. So they've done a pretty good job with this kind of stuff. There's also a bunch of stock apps that all have a similar design language among them. So it's kind of unifying the feel among the apps that come pre-installed on this phone. The only problem with that is that these are all third-party, and when you start to add other third-party apps from the Play Store, at least the good ones anyway, they all follow Google's new Holo design for Android 4.2. So they're all blue and dark themed, and these apps might look a little funky on the Oppo Find 5. They might not even fit in really, but even though they don't work, or they do work perfectly and they fit the platform beautifully, they might look a little out of place. Web pages look pretty awesome. They are great on the 1080p display, and they load pretty quickly, and scrolling and zooming around, it can all be handled by that Snapdragon S4 Pro, and Google Chrome is the stock browser, so it's a pretty natural experience, so it's a good job there. And it comes pre-installed with this sweet file manager. It's actually good looking, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it to show you the benchmarks that I got on that Snapdragon S4 Pro. So yeah, in case you were worried about this skin slowing down performance, nope. The synthetic benchmarks gave it pretty high marks, so you won't have to worry about getting sluggish or choppy performance or anything like that. This thing flies. But yeah, the distinguishing thing about the software is that all of the pre-installed bundled apps have that same white light design, and they all look good and beautiful on that 1080p display and everything, but they might not match your dark, hollow Play Store apps, even though they're really high quality. All of the extra bundled features and the UI tweaks aren't changed just for the sake of changing them, but they're changed with the intent of making it better and making their own software design work on this device. So it's a very Oppo device, as you can see. Overall, I think it flows pretty well. The UI is overall pretty smooth, and I rarely got stuck trying to figure anything out coming from another Android device. Also, a question people want to ask is, how well does it keep up with a power user? You know, someone like me who uses their phone every day with hours of screen on time, and I gotta say, it kept up pretty well with me. I'm a consistent user, and it was really snappy the whole day. Maybe not Nexus 4 snappy, but it was acceptably fast. And the battery often lasts me when I get up at 5:30 in the morning, don't ask, till around 11 or 12 at night, which qualifies as a full day in my book. And speaking of screen on time, that 1080p display is of course magnificent for gaming, for using that Snapdragon S4 Pro, for watching YouTube videos even. It's beautiful, just like the Droid DNA. It's a big, bright, and nice looking display. Viewing angles are also top notch like you would expect. And it of course blows the AMOLED displays out of the water in terms of brightness. So the Find 5 handles its business, man. It's a unique phone, no doubt, but it's unique in the way that makes you want to pick it up and try it rather than ignore it and wait for something else. And that's something a BIOS phone does. Best build quality out there, and one of the nicest, cleanest designs, rivals the buttonless Galaxy Nexus in terms of sexiness, in my opinion. And I'm convinced that, after all this time, the wait was definitely worth it. Alright, so there you go, guys. That is it. That is the Oppo Find 5. It's the stormtrooper of all smartphones in terms of design, and it is a BIOS in terms of build quality. So clearly, it is on top of at least my list right now for 2013. It's going to be hard to beat this, in my opinion, and definitely in terms of build. I feel like I could hammer a nail into wood with this thing, and I'd be more worried about breaking the nail than I would be about breaking the phone. Now, I know it's hard to get a good sense of how well you would actually like the phone in person, but it definitely feels like a slightly more rigid Lumia 920. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit thinner, a little bit sharper, a little bit more handsome, and to be honest, on paper, this thing is a beast on the spec sheet. It has a 5-inch 1080p display, it has a quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro, really good processor, probably the best on the line still right now, Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, 2,500 mAh battery, 16 gigs of storage, 2 gigabytes of RAM. It's clearly a world-class smartphone, and this is Oppo's way of saying, hey, we can make world-class smartphones too, and they've definitely proven that. So my result is, I guess, check it out, consider it. It's one of the best, and it will be for a while. Thanks for watching. This has been an MKBHD review video, and if you like what you saw, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That really does help out. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. That button is also below. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.